Hey, Acceptance Squad. This is Alex from Alex's Autism Acceptance channel. Wherever you're watching in the world, hope you're having a wonderful day. And today we have an interview with an ABA therapist named Allison. And today Allison is going to talk about her experiences and why she believes that ABA is very helpful. So thank you for coming on, Allison.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Alex. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So the first question is, how long have you been working in ABA, and roughly, how many children have you met through this program?
Yeah, wow. So I started my graduate work in 2006 and became a certified behavior analyst in 2008. Since my career started, I've worked in TBI, traumatic brain injury. I've worked with adults with intellectual disabilities, and then also a wide variety of ages in autism. So in that journey, I would say I've worked with probably over 100 clients, and then quite a few different service providers, educational team members, funding sources. So it's a pretty vast network when you really sit down and start to think about it. And your question prompted me to think about it. So I did some digging, and the answer kind of surprised me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's definitely awesome that you've had that wide variety of ages and also with neurodiversity as well. So you certainly had that experience, which is very good.
Yeah, it's been a quite a journey.
Yeah, definitely. What made you decide to go into ABA?
I love this question. So, I took an undergraduate course in psychology. And so I think I've always known I wanted to be in a field where I worked with other people and helped people. Um,
Totally, yeah.
and there was one little section in a psych course that was about behavior analysis. And it just clicked for me. It made so much sense. It kind of peeled back a layer of why do people do what they do, and how to understand that more. So then when it came time to think about grad school, I thought about programs that specifically focused on behavior analysis. My training really didn't focus on autism too much. It was more the science of behavior analysis. And then my professional journey is what ultimately led me to autism treatment.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I guess the follow-up question, was there a certain sort of shift that made you switch to autism, or was it just natural?
Honestly, there was. I started by working with adults, and I quickly realized that the intervention that I was able to offer them is more effective at a young age. And so I felt like by working with younger and younger kids, I was able to help kind of provide this support to parents who weren't really sure what was going on and how to handle their 2 or 3 year old that they just got this diagnosis for, but then also to like kind of change the whole trajectory of what learning and education would look like for these young ones, and then what community access would be for them down the road versus later in life when we get, how we all get set in our routines, we all kind of get set in
Totally.
who we are to some degree, and change is much harder.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. Starting education and behavior off at a very young age, because I was diagnosed right before the age of 3, and pretty much everything that I learned after that I do apply to this day. So it's so important to get a head start with that.
Yeah.
Because even 20 years later, the like I'm still in the same habits and all that, like the same mindset. I mean, that's adapted and developed, of course, but like the root of it is still there when I like even before I was diagnosed. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can say that I probably see certain characteristics of that in me now. My parents always joked that I was a bossy kid. I think I'm still probably a bossy adult to some degree.
Yeah.
So I totally understand.
Yeah, my quality is that I never give up even in the most hopeless situations, and that's been with me forever. So
Yeah. Well, hey, what a great thing to have, though. You probably have really accomplished some things then.
yeah, most of the time it is a positive thing, absolutely.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Um, have you heard any misconceptions or misunderstandings about ABA from people who are against it?
Oh, sure. I think we've all heard that ABA turns kids into robots. It can be traumatizing, it violates their rights. And I'm sure that there is probably some credibility to some of that, but it depends on the kind of ABA you get. And not all BCBAs, not all board certified behavior analysts approach autism therapy and ABA in the same way. And so sometimes you get a really good clinic and you get a really good group of people who know how to do it in a way that creates meaningful change, positive change. And sometimes it's not. And what the problem in my mind is there's so much information out in the internet and out in the world. Folks have a really hard time kind of filtering all of that
Absolutely.
and recognizing like, hey, Allison is talking about play-based intervention. She's talking about similarities to preschool. She's talking about me as a parent or a caregiver being highly involved from the beginning versus bring your kid in 40 hours a week. We'll do whatever it takes, and so I think our consumers, the people in the world, are having a hard time deciding which direction to go. And so then we're ending up with some bad outcomes.
I see. Interesting. So it's essentially like there's a wider variety than most people think. Is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Our field is changing a lot, and we're
Mm.
really talking about assent-based therapy, approach-based therapy. So if I'm working with a 3-year-old and that 3-year-old doesn't want to sit next to me, isn't making eye contact, isn't laughing when I'm trying to be funny or play with them, then that means they're not ready. They're not ready for me to do any teaching, for them to do any learning. And so we have to take a step back and kind of evaluate, all right, is it the environment? Is it what I have going on in front of them? And how do I contrive a situation so that they'll feel safe, secure, honored, and then they're ready to participate in the therapy process. And that's kind of forward thinking. That's sort of new thinking for BCBAs in the ABA world. So you may end up with some BCBAs who just aren't hip to that yet. And it's still the old model of, well, kid, we're going to sit down and we're going to learn these colors, whether you like it or not. Here's your goldfish. I hope it motivates you.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is certainly an approach that I haven't heard of before. They're just like sort of waiting for the child to move forward instead of like forcibly moving forward. I think that's absolutely wonderful that they are implementing that. That's very helpful, and it definitely makes the process more natural. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. We recently at my center that I am the clinical director at, we have started this campaign. We're calling it Bringing the Joy. And
Okay.
it's all about like, if your learner isn't having joy, then you won't be either. And so how can you have this dance together that's more similar to sort of a natural learning experience that the child would have with a caregiver? And the cool thing is I see a bunch of behavior technicians that are having a lot more fun, I hope, because their pressure is off and the kids are happier because they get to have so much fun with these people that are teaching them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I know this firsthand for 3 summers as a camp counselor, as well as my internship, which is being a teacher and all that. If you are not interested in the subject, the kids are going to tell, and they won't be interested either. So it's like you really have to, and even if you're not interested, you really have to make it an effort to genuinely be interested because they can pick up on things that are not genuine very easily.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I tell folks all the time, just because we've got a learner here who is on the spectrum doesn't mean that they don't have preferences about what they do, when they do it, who they work with. And I try
Absolutely.
to explain to people, like, don't take it personally. You don't love every single person that's in your life. You
Yeah,
might have a favorite teacher and then a not so favorite teacher. And that's just the
totally.
nature
Yeah.
of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. I put my kids into certain groups because I'm like, you're gonna be working with people you don't like all your life, and you just have to tolerate that. And the earlier you start out, the better it gets. So yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Um, in your own words, what is the purpose of ABA therapy, and does your opinion differ in any way from the place where you work?
Yeah. Um, so, to me, the purpose of ABA therapy is to identify like personally meaningful outcomes. for either the learner or the parent. And it really kind of depends on the age. So if they're entering our clinic or our practice at 2, 3, 4 years old, it's probably going to be that caregiver or the parent that's sort of driving that of, I want Susie to learn how to ride a bike so that she can join family bike rides. I want Johnny to understand what a birthday party is so that he can go to friends' birthday parties and participate.
Sure, yeah.
I've had families ask me, can you help so and so Sally learn to love grandma's mashed potatoes so that way when we go to Thanksgiving dinner, she can
Yeah,
sit there and eat grandma's mashed potatoes. So to me, that's when I say personally meaningful, like those are the kinds of goals that we're really interested in. And then of course the other types of things that are necessary to break down those barriers so kids can access the education system and do so in the most meaningful and independent way possible. We always joke at our clinic that we're trying to work our ways out of a job. Like if I had no more job, then I've done a good job. But
yeah,
really, it's getting those kids ready to go and be in school and be successful as quickly as we can. So
sure, yeah.
that's kind of that younger learner. A teenager, probably we're going to talk about social skills and how do you make friends and
Mhm.
how do you know when someone's a good friend and how do you be a good friend and what does that mean? And usually that recreation and leisure is super important because that's how you're going to access your community the rest of your life, right?
Sure, yeah. Um, so I guess like I'm 23, so like what do you do with like people around my age who like people who are like 23-year-olds getting into ABA for the first time? Like what do you do with fully grown adults?
Yeah, so that's going to look drastically different. Like really honestly, we're not going to do any kind of discrete trial or natural environment teaching. It's going to be more like, well, what's a goal for you? And you
Okay.
might say to me, Allison, I really get anxious when I work with people that are too funny. They just laugh at everything at work, and I don't get it sometimes, and that makes me feel like I'm not on the same page or something. And so then we
Okay,
would
yeah.
work on like, well, what kind of coping strategies or what kind of interpersonal skills might you want to have to deal with that person? And so then we'll use the principles of behavior to help you um, develop those, memorize those, implement them. But it's not going to look like it would, with someone that's younger.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely understand that. And then for the person that's younger, my understanding of it is, do you sort of almost like have a meeting with the parent before you start interacting with the child so you can get a list of like what they need to work on and what they're good at already? So, stuff like that. Is that what you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly that. So
Yeah.
starting therapy is a multi-step process.
Hmm.
First, we meet with the family and we say, tell us about your loved one. What's going
Sure.
on?
Yeah.
Who are they? What are they good at? What are they not good at? It's kind of like an IEP process almost. What are your hopes and dreams? What are your immediate goals? And then we take a step back from talking to the parents and we interact with the child themselves. We play together. We'll do what we call a skill assessment just to see where are we starting. What is this child already able to do? Where should we head? And then from there, we develop a treatment plan or goals. And then before we implement any of that, we sit back down with the parents or the caregivers and we say, hey, this is our plan. This is what we think is really important. Do you agree? And that's their opportunity to, again, contribute and participate. Because I might say, I think it's really important that we tackle motor imitation. And a parent might say, okay, fine, but I also really need you to help me teach my child how to brush their teeth.
Hmm.
Totally valid. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we would tackle that, and that would be a priority.
Okay. Now, what happens if you think they should work on something, but the parent disagrees? What do you do in that situation?
I think we follow and we honor what the parent is saying, and we tackle some other mutually agreed upon goals, and then we revisit it because maybe the
Okay.
parent is right. I'm a big fan of telling parents, you know your kid better than anyone else in the world. And so I'm one person who has met them for 12 hours, and this is my clinical judgment. It doesn't mean that it's 100% right.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a wonderful way of looking at things, just like with the mutual agreement and all that. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, it has to be a partnership. We're so involved in these families' lives that if parents don't feel connected to us and like they can trust us, it's not going to work, you know.
Totally. Completely agree. Yeah. Um, why do you think ABA gets a negative reputation from some autistic advocates?
Ooh, that's a tough one for me
It is.
because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
circle that I travel in is pretty positive. I mean, a lot of my friends are BCBAs. I work pretty closely with all of the families. But I am aware of what's happening in social media and in mainstream media. And I
Hmm.
have to imagine it's because someone's had a negative experience with that kind of ABA or that BCBA that I described earlier. And
True.
then they tell a friend who tells a friend, and it gains momentum. And
Yeah.
then compounding that is, so then when you, Alex, you go to the internet and you're like, well, what is this ABA thing all about? You get all this information then, and you don't know how to, you're like, well, some of it matches what my friend Sally told me, but this thing over here doesn't. I don't know. What should I believe? And I think those horror stories get a lot more press time, to tell you the truth, than the success stories.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I completely agree because I mean the what the news does is thrive on stories that are more negative because that's what like captures people's attention and all that.
Mhm.
And I was actually talking to one of my friends about this the other day. I was like, the internet. I mean, I think it's sort of overwhelmed us with opinions. Like, I don't think humans are able to process this many opinions, all because of the internet. And so when you get all these like different thoughts, it's pretty much impossible to tell without experiencing it yourself. And then when you hear about this horror stories of people who do experience it, you're like, okay, I don't even want to try that out, right?
Mhm.
It's just not worth it to me. So I think that's what happens in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, because I mean, I know we don't operate like that, and I know that I've got lots of happy families and successful kids that have gone on to do well at school. But I do know that the reality is that there is some bad apples, but
Yeah,
that's in any field. And so I
that
hate
is
to hear us, this entire evidence-based treatment be discounted because of a few, the minority, you know?
no, I completely agree with that. It's like it's sort of like why teachers overall have a bad reputation, even though there are only a few bad apples. Same with police officers and all that. So yeah, it's just like we gotta look at the overall here, definitely.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that, even though it was a tough one.
Definitely, yeah. Um, how much faith do you have that society will naturally adapt to autistic individuals?
Mm. Well, I have a lot of faith in humans. So I'm going to say I have faith. I would love to give you a little story. My own father, when I started in this field, when I went to school, he's a computer programmer. And I grew up my whole life with him saying, Allison, just go into computers. It's easier than people. And
Yeah,
he really wasn't, I don't think, clear for years on exactly what it was that I did. And in fact, he would write down on a little piece of paper, like what my title was and like a quick summary of my job. And when people would ask him, he'd pull it out of his wallet. And then this man, for what, 10, 12 years now, 14 years, just about a year ago, started watching documentaries about autism, reading books about it. And now at dinner, when we're together, he says, Allison, did you know? And so he's educating himself and he's really getting hip and understanding this neurodivergency and neurodiverse population. And it's not a disability or a problem. It's
yeah,
just a different brain and it operates a little differently. And so I think, if my dad who just would rather deal with computers, can dive in. I think anyone can, but you have to be motivated and you have to want to understand. And I
mhm,
think we have to be patient. Change takes time. It takes a long time to change
totally.
an entire society's view on something. But as long as we all have a voice and we're sharing our voice, I think we'll get there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that as well, and that's why I'm so inspired by all of the autism related YouTube channels and Instagram accounts and Facebook profiles. It's like we're getting the word out we're sort of like snowballing this from what I've seen in the past. Because I've been on YouTube for 2.5 years, and the amount of channels that have been added based on autism is incredible. Um, and I think like as long as we keep doing that and we just sort of jump on that train of social media and end up using it for good, because so much of social media is bad. So if we continue to use that for good, um, then we're able to get more exposure from that, and in turn, society gets a little more open. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just open, just all right, give me some good information. Yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing about my channel. Like it's definitely not the most interesting channel, but it gives people information that they need to hear, and if they want to hear it, they got it. So yeah.
Yeah. I think you might be too hard on yourself. I've watched a few episodes. I did a little homework. I thought they
Okay.
were pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Of course.
Um one final question. Do you have any success stories of the ABA program? So like students who have come back to you years later and talking about what they've done and all that. And please describe a couple if you do.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really have the like coming back years later, the students, I have parents that'll reach out and share with me some things that are successful to them. But a few of the examples that I gave you to me are successes. I did have a little girl who we worked for 3 years to help her learn to ride a bike. She had a twin and then a younger sibling, and the whole family rode bikes, and it was like really important to their social and recreational life in the summer.
Yeah.
And we finally got that done. Like we finally made that happen for her. Um, I had a learner who couldn't participate in the Christmas traditions of their family, only because the bows and the wrapping paper were like the thing that was it that they could think about. And so we practiced a lot of those holiday traditions for that family for like 3 or 4 months leading up. And so then they were pretty set. They knew the routine. They knew what to do in each of the scenarios. And so they had a successful holiday and successful holidays moving forward.
Wow.
I've had kids though that had some pretty dangerous behaviors, some head hitting, self injurious behavior. And we were able to teach them language and be able to say no, I don't like that, or I need a break, or I'm all done, and then how to request things. And so, we really kind of saved some pretty intense physical harm from happening from those kids. So those are the kinds of general successes that we have, and it's a pretty wide range, and it really depends on the goal and the purpose of therapy for each kid.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I will say, like, no matter how small the success, like, especially if it happens at a very young age, that can snowball into something much bigger. And then the more you do it and the more greater chance it has of snowballing, then it just sort of keeps adding up, and it keeps adding up positively. Um, so really, I always say, like, no success is too small because we have no idea where it's going to lead in the future.
Or what it means to those folks.
Yeah,
Uh, a lot of times it's the small wins at home that keep parents going. Like, oh, I did this. I was able to help Johnny do that. Well, what could I do next? And then they come to me and they say, all right, Allison, what can we teach him next? I want to teach him this. And then you can just sort of see parents becoming more and more confident. And then the family unit grows tighter and happier, and off you go.
definitely. Yeah. And I mean, personally for me, like I did have trouble communicating this when I was very young. But some of the teachers, like just the smallest breakthroughs they had, they were tiny breakthroughs in their eyes. But for me, it really changed everything. So you just never know what they're going through on the inside with that.
Right, right. Well said.
Definitely. All right. Well, everyone, that was Allison Singer. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yep, Allison Singer. If, please leave your comments. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to have a discussion about it. But please do watch the entire video before commenting. And Allison, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your time, and we'll stay in contact, maybe for some more interviews.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it.
All right, have a wonderful day.
You too.